It's recording.
Hello, I am Dr. Sonia Whitaker, Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Dalton West School District 148, located in Riverdale, Illinois. And I'm happy to share with you the content of our district office administrative staff's team presentation to all teachers throughout the entire district. This content was developed and put together for the purpose of increasing the likelihood that we do an effective job of providing all students with equitable access to a quality education. Ms. Walker.
Good afternoon, Washington staff. Again, thank you all for allowing us to share your staff meeting with you. As Dr. Whitaker mentioned, the sole purpose of this professional development is for us to continue to grow you all as educational leaders and the capacity of what instruction looks like at Dalton School District 148. I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. If you can see my screen, I ask that you kind of nod your head or thumbs up. Thank you, Mr. Mockworth. Thank you. Okay. So our administrative team here at district office, we are collaborating ongoing about what supports look like for our district and how we can then provide that support and get it down to the teacher level so that you can feel supported and that you are successful for this academic school year, which is our ultimate goal. The purpose, I just want to run over the agenda items so that you will know how this is going to flow. We're going to do an overview of the MTSS process, which will be presented by myself. Then Mrs. Navarre will talk about the movement through the MTSS tiers. Mrs. Yanis will give you some special education updates as it relates to MTSS. Mrs. Young will then come forth to give you what supports is going to look like for the ReadyGen and EL curriculums this year. And then she will also provide you with some information about Microsoft 365 and its applications. I will then come back and provide you with what professional development looks like at the district and through our system for iReady within the year, this first year implementation. Then Mr. Donnemeyer will speak briefly about the at-home assessment options. And then I will talk about what the iReady at-home assessment options should look like at our district level. And then Mr. Donnemeyer will talk about accessing the STAR online instructions. So to begin, we want to look at our MTSS tiered intervention in Dalton West School District 148. We want to make sure that across the system and throughout the district, everyone, every teaching staff knows what we're doing at tier 1 in terms of our tiered intervention, what we're doing at tier 2, and what should be happening at tier 3. To begin this presentation, I want to focus our efforts on our tier 1, which, as you should know, is the core instruction. And so what is it that every student should be receiving across our district at tier 1? We want to focus our efforts on 3 areas. We want to look at what instructional practices are happening at each of these tiers, what core instructional resources are provided at each of these tiers, and then what data resources are we pulling when we're looking to consider moving students between the tiers. So focusing our efforts on tier 1, our instructional practice that should be used is balanced literacy and balanced math across the district. Our core instructional resources that we have identified that Dalton School District 148 will be using within our system is creative curriculum for our pre-K students, ReadyGen for reading for our kindergarten and 6th grade students, kindergarten through 6th grade students. We do recognize that some of our 6th grade students and some of our buildings are utilizing our EL instruction. And also all of our 7th and 8th graders are engaged in EL instruction. All of our students in kindergarten through 8th grade should be now using and engaged in Ready Mathematics Classroom, with the iReady component as the online component to the program. When we look at our data resources that we're going to use to pull data to determine whether or not a student should receive tier 2 intervention. So at tier 1, for our pre-K students, we're looking at the GOLD assessment. That assessment is given to our students who are enrolled in our ECC. Our START early lit is the other data point that we're looking at for most of our kindergartners. Some of our kindergartners and 1st through 8th grade students we're looking to pull reports and start reading. New to our system is our iReady diagnostics for math that we're using across all grade levels, kindergarten through 8th grade. We have a small population of our ELL students, and we're using the access assessment for data, for a data point. We're also using our unit assessments in both reading and math at tier 1. I think it's important to pause here for a second just to recognize that when we're moving to tier 2 and we look at what the instructional practices look like, we have identified that we're using small group instruction. However, if you bounce back to tier 1, which is what's happening in the core in all of our classrooms across the district, it involves small group instruction, which you all should be very versed in because it is a component of our balanced literacy and our balanced math frameworks. When a student moves to tier 2, however, for the instructional practices that are being utilized, they're going to meet in small groups, and we're going to utilize our guided reading and our guided math practices to differentiate what that instruction looks like to meet the students' needs. Our core and supplemental intervention resources that we're using at tier 2 across the system would be our Micro Haggerty for phonemic awareness, Ready Up for reading, Read Theory also for reading. One is used for fluency, one is used for comprehension. Across the system, we're also using our iReady Math. And we're using, at this moment, Stride Academy for both reading and math. I would like to pause here because I like to be very transparent to make you aware that because our iReady program is new to our district, one of the things that we're going to be doing is evaluating at this point whether or not we need to continue using Stride as an instructional resource, depending on what we discover as collectively as a group, as we begin to dissect the reports that we will begin to generate from the iReady program. Our data resources that we're going to use at the tier 2 level, if you notice, they are overlapping. So we're going to be utilizing, again, our Stride reading and math at this point, our STAR early lit assessment, our reading assessment, easy CBM for our junior high students, our iReady diagnostics, and also our unit assessments in both reading and math across our curriculums. I think it's also should be made clear here that when we talk about the instructional resources that we're utilizing in our system at tier 2, we need to make sure that if a building leader identifies that there's another instructional resource that's being utilized at the building level, they need to have a conversation with Dr. Whitaker, because we want to make sure that the intervention that's being used is research-based. And the reason why we want to make sure that it's research-based, not standards loaded, not Common Core line, but research-based, is because our school psychologists cannot move forward with a decision of whether or not a student should receive additional services if the intervention being used in any tier is not research-based. When we move to tier 3, we're looking at our students who need more intensive, individualized support. At tier 3, the instructional practices that are used is individualized Or we also recognize that some of our data that we receive will indicate that we have 2 or 3 scholars with the same academic deficit. So at this point, at that tier 3 level, we have noted and approved for groups of 2 or 3, not to exceed 3 students receiving a tier 3 intervention. Again, this is used in our guided reading and our guided math settings. The core supplemental interventions that we're going to use at tier 3 is really great reading, read theory, read up for reading, iReady Math, Prodigy Math, Moby Max reading and math, and right now Stride reading and math. I think it's important to pause here to identify that we should not be using any intervention that is identified on this chart at tier 1 where the core is happening. The instructional resources used at the core is only the curriculum programs designed to meet our students' needs, all of our students' needs at the core. So if in fact you are using Moby Max or Prodigy Math in the core, we have to stop that through the system because we're not moving our students with fidelity through what our tier system looks like. Our data resources, again, as they are overlapping at tier 3, Stride Academic for Reading and Math, Star Early Lit, Star Reading, Easy CBM for our junior high students, our diagnostics from iReady, our unit assessments again, and both reading and math. At this time, Mrs. Navarre will walk you through what movement through the tiers look like through the system of Dalton School District 148. Ms. Navarre.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walker, and good afternoon, Washington. For those of you who were with us last year, and for those of you who are new this year, last year, Dr. Whitaker led the MTSS team, which consisted of the MTSS facilitators, along with our school psychologists, our director of support program, the assistant to the director of support programs, along with Mr. Dunnenmeyer and myself. We all met here at district and movement through the tiers. This information that I will be sharing with you today is language that we developed, during our meeting. When we look at movement through the tiers in K through 6, as well as 6 through 8, we will be utilizing the assessment results from Star Reading and iReady Math. When we look at movement from K6 and movement for 6-8, we will identify the lowest 20% of the students in each classroom for consideration of movement to tier 2. As we look at movement for K6, we will utilize the assessments from Ready Gen and iReady Math to identify the lowest 20% for consideration of movement to tier 2. As we look at movement for 6-8, we're going to be utilizing the fluency and comprehension assessment for Easy CBM and assessments from iReady Math to identify the lowest 20% for consideration of movement to tier 2. And we are utilizing Easy CBM for our EL curriculum. When we look at movement for K6, we are going to be utilizing our Ready Gen assessments, which include our baseline assessment, our BOY fluency, and Unit 1 Module A, PBA, and/or Unit 1 Module A, end of the year assessment. Identification of the lowest 20% in movement for K through 6 will be done with our iReady mathematics assessment. When we look at movement at both K6 and 6-8, we are going to be utilizing Stride PMAs in reading and math as we look at our